Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Laurent Charpentier, who is the CEO of Yooz. Yooz provides the smartest, most powerful, and easy to cloud-based e-invoicing and purchase-to-pay automation solution. So think of it like AI plus automation. Some amazing things that they're doing is it delivers unmatched savings speed and work with over 5,000 customers and 300,000 users worldwide. Wow, that's awesome. Laurent, welcome. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So one of the cool things I loved about you that I heard from you in the pre-show was just your journey and how you came to being the CEO of the organization. Can you give us a real quick snapshot? Because I think I loved your journey, and I think it would be awesome and inspiring for you to share that with some others on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started with a technical background from my education, French engineering school, and then engineering school in the US, a good stint at MIT, which was a great experience there. And then after that, I spent 4 to 5 years doing some technical consulting, worked on several large digital transformation projects around different ERP products or CRM products. And then I started building my business experience when I joined Yooz, where essentially I joined Yooz to develop the North American side of the business kind of from scratch. And when I started that journey at Yooz, I hired some sales and marketing professionals to complement myself and my technical background. And this really helped me develop my business acumen around there. And after, developing the North American side of Yooz for 6-7 years, I was offered to take the global CEO role of the Yooz Group, which is today about 500 people globally between the EMEA operations and the North American one. So super exciting journey, and it's continuing fast.
Well, congrats, man. Like I told you, I think that's amazing, and that's hard to do. And you started the North American from scratch. Like how many did you grow it to from zero to what until you had to move, just in terms of the organization?
So the North American side today is about 100-ish people, mostly based in Dallas, some remote, and we have about 400 on the other side of the pond, and all the product and R&D team are based in EMEA. So that's about the distribution of our team today.
And then how did you because it's funny because this was even something I was planning on talking about a ton about, but I think it's impressive and it's hard to do. So what would you say were the top 2 or 3 key things that made that successful and enable you to make that transition, especially coming from an engineering and consulting background to also then lead up sales and then grow that?
I think it's being curious, asking questions, even if you think they're stupid questions at first. Getting the right team members to help you. Get people that are smarter than you on all those things is key, and the right mentors, whether they're your board members, your advisors. All of those people have been helping me, and it's been a great journey for me because I've learned so much, and this is the exciting part. Like you learn from good and smart people, and this helps you build a good culture and a good business.
Well, and it's funny because you're the second person I've interviewed today that's in a really high position that took a really large emphasis on learning. So anybody listening, make sure you dial that in. And if you follow the trail, who I just interviewed prior to Laurent as well. So let's give us a real quick backdrop about Yooz and exactly what your solution does and then the outcomes it creates, because I think that would be a great understanding contextually before we start getting into the automation, the AI piece, and finance, all those areas.
Yes, so Yooz automates the entire purchase to payment process, and this is very modular, so you don't have to start with everything, but we can really cover the entire purchase to payment process. And essentially, we've built a platform based on 4 pillars. Ease of use and implementation, very powerful features and functionalities to really cover the entire process. Smart technologies, we have a strong DNA in AI with a data science team of 15, almost 20 people now. And we've had that team for 15 years, so way before AI was, a big buzzword like it is today. And the 4th pillar is the security, not only because the purchase to payment automation process brings control, but also because we are building some technology around that security. And of course, all of that is in the cloud, which is key for growing businesses.
Excellent, man. Well, I love the automation aspect of it. And so give us an example, just contextually, so someone can visualize it. if they were to do a manual purchase to pay process versus leverage your solution, what's the differential in terms of like time, people, outcomes needed to perform that? Because I love reverse engineering from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's huge, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses today still kind of do that. So if you think about the purchasing, what's going to happen? You're either going to have some kind of Excel or Word document that you're going to fill and send to a vendor, or you're going to give a phone call to that vendor, and the purchasing happens over the phone with no approval or traceability whatsoever. Once you've purchased something, you get an invoice, and again, if we go all the way back to reverse engineering that process where everything's manual, what happens? You get a piece of paper through the mail. At best, you get maybe an email from the vendor. That piece of paper or that email is going to have, in some cases, the email gets printed. That blows my mind sometimes when I hear that. And then you're going to have to make sure that this piece of paper gets through the proper people for approval, and eventually to the accounting team so they can key that data into the accounting system, whatever your organization uses. And then down the road, there is usually a weekly or a bi-weekly check run where checks are printed. The CFO signs the check, and so the vendor gets paid. So all of that, studies show that it takes forever, 30 days, sometimes more if your organization is sometimes big and still fully manual. And of course, a lot of manual touch points and no traceability at all into who did what when. That's the very manual process that essentially we solve from start to finish in a single platform, a single source of truth. And I can expand on different steps if you want.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get super deep on the steps. I think you nailed it. And I mean, that just sounds like a nightmare the way you described it. So to do which is why I'm sure you're doing well, right? So I mean, like, what do you see as the future though with like AI specifically as it relates to finance? Because there's talk of entire departments getting automated. There's, other areas, but I mean, just from working extensively with the LLMs, I know they're pattern recognition machines and like very, very good at that. So like, what do you see as the opportunity?
To me, the opportunity, especially with the progress of AI today and all the proven AI technology that we've built, at least on the Yooz side, is really let's select the best AI approach to solve the different use cases that happen through that full purchase to payment process, and really bring the maximum level of automation. And the idea there is to really augment your team, enhance the human to do more with less. So you don't have to key data. You don't have to worry about finding anomalies in your books or in your payables process. And you let that for AI to do, right. And then you can focus on your vendor relationships, on negotiating early payment discounts, things like this that are much more important for the organization, looking into the data, getting insights, which again, the AI can do a lot of that for you, but then you want to put the pair of human eyes when it comes to making the final decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I love that. And you got my brain spinning here because like I've been obsessed with AI agents for a while now and have been testing and using a lot of them. I guess like I think it's all fundamentally designed around like the automation process first and making sure that works. So when you were building the product, because I know you come from a consulting background and an engineering background, when you're building the product and involved with that, right? Obviously overseeing that now as a CEO, like what's your systematic like framework for identifying like, all right, what can we automate here? How do we approach it? Because I think here's what I would say. A lot of companies are really struggling with this right now. And I think there's going to be some gold, some diamonds, platinum, whatever you want to mention within that for your product creation process versus the future of what's happening next when it comes to automation and agents.
Yeah. So there are different channels, I guess, that feed this thought process. Of course, listening to our customers, what do they see in the product today? What feedback do they give us? So it's either making what exists better, and this could be taking another approach than we have historically, etc. So it's optimizing the existing, which sometimes requires a bigger refactor, or it's thinking about new use cases that we sometimes get from our customers, or that we will see in our data, or in the way our customers use the product. So it's interesting because we've seen more and more customers, for example, uploading in our product vendor statements. And then we thought, oh, we realized all those vendor statements are, for a lot of them, reconciled manually. So they really print the statements and check or highlight the paper to reconcile this with the invoices that are in the systems. This brought up a use case for us, which is now we can use AI, we can extract all the data from those documents And we have all the invoices to reconcile all of that automatically. And now what was a multi-hour process or multi-day process for some companies can be reduced to just minutes or a few hours, like by 80+% because of that. So we find those use cases also through the use of the product and by looking at the data we get in the product.
Love that. Okay, yeah, I think that's a really sharp way to look at that. So as the CEO of like an automated AI kind of focused company, like what's the next frontier for you in terms of where you see the industry is heading, especially with how fast it's heading? I mean, like Satya over at Microsoft, even mentioned in his Ignite keynote a couple of weeks ago, is like, hey, we're operating at Moore's Law times 3, right? So what that means is Moore's Law is like, we're doubling technology every 18 months, just for in case you're not familiar with it, not talking to you, but just for everybody, right? And basically what that means is like, we're doubling technology every 6 months. So what's your take on that, especially with the space you're in and how fast things are moving?
I mean, it is super exciting because this gives us a lot of things to test, to play with. We have a lot of data. So, typically we always try to test new technology or new approaches with, sample of data that are good to test different use cases. And it's super exciting. The approach we try to take at Yooz is really what is going to help our customers, what is going to bring value to them. Because you can do so much with AI, but if, you cannot boil the ocean, right? So you have, at some point, you have to focus your energy on what will deliver the most value. And this is really what we're trying to do with, of course, customer interviews, looking at what the competition does, what the competition does not do, because we also want to bring some unique things to the market and try to take this approach. So we try to test everything, and then, what's the best approach for solving a specific use case that is really painful for our customers and bring value to them.
Okay. Well, then brings me to the next question is like, how do you prioritize, right? Like, how do you stack, rank, and prioritize? And like, you've done the due diligence, right? You've looked through it, you've tested it, you've maxed it. Like, do you use like an Eisenhower matrix, a 2x2 matrix? Like what's your approach to prioritizing, like what you actually focus on, what tools you use, LLMs or others? Would love to hear your take on that, because that's always something people are struggling with too.
Yeah.
Well.
So in terms of the tool or the approach, I mean, I rely on our data science team to, hey, let's test how we can solve with use case with different technologies and what's the most efficient or what deliver the best results. So we take a pretty scientific approach based on results and metrics there. In terms of what use case do we prioritize, this typically comes from, what we hear from our customers, what we hear from the market, and what we also think ourselves as an organization and what fits with our vision. So we try to balance those three things because we want to make sure we have what the market expects of us. We want to make sure that we have what our customers expect of us, and we want to make sure that we steer the product in the direction of our vision and stay on that path that makes us unique. So try to balance those three things evenly, kind of.
Yeah, no, I think it's good, man. Because like, I mean, customers are always the ultimate signal, right? Like they're going to tell you what they want. And the part that struck me as interesting is the data science team. So do you have them run like potential financial simulations on different routes you go with products? Is that what I heard you saying at the beginning? Or did I misunderstand you?
Not financials, more like if I go back to one of our recent features, which is reconciling vendor statements. It's like, let's get a good amount of samples from our customers. What are their use cases? What are the exceptions that they have to manage and all of that? And then, let's try to build a reconciliation use case where, of course, there are different steps in that reconciliation process. What if we do that with an LLM? What if we do that with our symbolic AI approach, which has been proven for over a decade at Yooz? What if we do this with more deep learning? And what is the approach that results in the best thing? And sometimes you have to combine things with different layers. So this is kind of how we try to look at things, because the LLM is great at solving some problems, but not so much are others, or not as efficient when it comes to how much CPU or GPU you need sometimes to run those. So try to be smart about that as well, which then will lead to a very performant product at a better cost.
Is that like one of the things you enjoy most about your job, is getting involved with that like creative aspect? Or like, what do you love focusing on the most, like being in the position of the global CEO?
Yeah, with my tech background, the product is very much something that I love doing and exchanging with our technical team, R&D. And again, like I said, try to push in the direction. Well, what if we had no boundaries, no limits? Let's try to do that, and then find something that really is embeddable in the product.
I love that question because that gets everybody thinking, like, what if we had no boundary and no limits? So I think that's a great point to stop for episode 1. We will be back for part 2. But before we do that, where can people find you? Where can they find more about Yooz? And then we'll wrap this up.
Absolutely. So you can find us online at www.getyooz.com. And that's probably the best way. You will have landing pages, a lot of content, and you will also be able to see what conferences or trade shows we attend if our path can cross on some of those.
Well, Laurent, it was awesome having you on the show. Appreciate it. And thanks for joining today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. And we will see you all on the next episode.